I had the same pleasure of recording an upcoming episode with our very special guest, Becky White. Becky is the founder of a chain to stories of which inspired her work as an advocate for fentanyl. She shared her methods all over the state and nationwide. Her mission is to save and spare others pain and family. Please join me in welcoming Becky.
Thank you guys for being here. No, thank you to everybody who made my together.
I still see you in the places we would go, like your face is painted on the walls. I've been trying to forget all the moments that we spent, 'cause now I do it on my own. I still see you in the places we would go, like your face is painted on the walls. I've been trying to forget all the moments that we spent, 'cause now I do it on my own. Oh, you and I were like this summer, but now it's winter here on my own. If I would've known that you wouldn't be here anymore, I would've made the moments last a little longer. 'Cause now I'm alone, and you're just a memory in my mind. I would've given anything to say goodbye. If I would've known. Oh, I remember how we would laugh all the I still see you in the places we would go, like your face is painted on the walls. I've been trying to forget all the moments that we spent, 'cause now I But now it's winter here on my own. If I would've known. And you're just a memory in my mind. I would have given anything to say goodbye. If I would have. I still see you in the places we would go, like your face is painted on the walls. I've been trying to forget all the moments that we spent, 'cause now I do it on my own. Oh, you and I were like this summer, but now it's winter here on my own. If I would've known. I still see you in the places we would go, like your face is painted on the walls. I've been trying to forget all the moments that we spent, 'cause now I do it on my own. I still see you in the places we would go, like your face is painted on the walls. I've been trying to forget all the moments that we spent, 'cause now I do it on my own. Oh, you But now it's winter here on my own. If I would've known that you wouldn't be here anymore, I would've made the moments last a little longer. 'Cause now I'm alone, and you're just a memory in my mind. I would've given anything to say goodbye. If I would've known, if I would've known, oh, oh, I remember how we would laugh all the time at night and not around. And I'm just trying to find something else to fill the empty spaces you left behind. But nothing ever seems to work. I've been thinking about the things that you used to say, even not around. You're in my head every day, but it's fine, I don't mind. I promise I'll be okay. If I would've known that you wouldn't be here anymore, I would've made the moments last a little longer. 'Cause now I'm alone, and you're just a memory in my mind. I would've given anything to say goodbye. If I would've known, if I would've known, oh, oh, oh,
The beautiful. Number. Number two. And one incredibly sad. Not good. Yeah. Some of you can see this banner. There are 150 cases. And unfortunately, we are losing more per day. Anyway, think about that. More than it's pretty much to a loaded airplane every single day. Pretty scary. I'm here to talk to you today about that. Before I tell you what happened to Cameron was hands down that was from the team and turn an angry situation into a teachable moment. He had loved and his big brother. He was incredibly talented athlete. He also played soccer. But you know, outside, he struggled with real life stuff, and not to mention, all of us have that. And unfortunately, he decided to experience. It started about talking. Sad that people do nothing. But when marijuana started to he started experimenting. And unfortunately, March 20th, 2021, Cameron made an incredibly poor choice. That one pill was enough that it looked like, but it contained. Cameron didn't want to die. As much as he struggled with that could just, you just felt his presence. Just by one of my favorite memories, him walking through my front door. He had an apartment. Quite often. He'd walk in the front door, top, he'd close the door and he'd stand there and go, and those curls would just fly. And I hope that memory. But, you know, him taking that path was something he knew was dangerous. The day before he was back, he and I texted. He actually reached out to me and said, "Come on, tomorrow." Not that it took me, but probably texted him. And we landed on going down to walking the dog Bailey around and hitting up some food trucks. And he said, "Yeah, that sounds really fun." And then later that afternoon, I texted him and I said, "Hey, Bud, let me know what time you want to go down tomorrow." And I didn't hear back from him, which wasn't abnormal. I'm sure you're teenagers and, you know, respond right away, right? Anyway, it wasn't anything abnormal. I didn't think anything of it. And then before I went to bed, I texted, "Hello, question mark, question mark." And didn't have a response from him. I still didn't think anything of it until I woke up in the middle of the night and didn't have a response. My mama's heart was thinking something's not right. But that next morning I woke up and went about my business, kind of ignoring what I felt was wrong. And when it got the better of me, I called his dad and we met up at his apartment and knocked on his door. And of course, didn't get a response. So I immediately called Leander Police Department. 2 amazing officers came out. And we ended up having to go get the key to his apartment from his roommate, who was already at work. And came back with the key and opened up the door. And the officers went in, and thankfully we didn't go in. But all we needed to do at that moment was drop to our knees and start praying. Praying that what our hearts knew what was going on, just praying that wasn't the case. And what seemed like an eternity later, that door opened. And I remember looking up, and you can never unsee the look on an officer's face when he's about to tell you that your child is dead. But he did. He had to say, "I'm sorry, but he's gone." Obviously, worst day of my family's life. But grief is really weird, because then I went into this mode of, I've got to tell Hayden, his older brother. So I kind of ignored what was going on at Cameron's apartment, and when we were released to leave, we left and drove to San Angelo, 3 hours away. Because I couldn't stand the thought of him finding out through a text or a phone call or social media post. And we made it there and told Hayden that Cameron was gone. Second worst part of that day. Hayden now has no siblings. His baby brother was gone. So an autopsy was done, and let me tell you what, and some of you can attest to this in this room, these law enforcement and emergency medical individuals are getting so tired of telling families that their loved ones are dead. It is so tiring, emotionally, physically, wearing on them. So there's got to be something done. But an autopsy was done and toxicology was taken, of course, and once that finally came back and we learned it was fentanyl poisoning, It wasn't too terribly long after that I knew I had to do something. And that's why I'm up here today. I created my nonprofit, A Change for Cam, to honor him and warn others of this dangerous drug. So I go out to schools, communities, individual clubs, groups, whoever will listen. You guys, thank you for having me, because I feel it's that critical. I don't want any other families to go through what our family has gone through. Sadly, a couple years ago, we unofficially formed a Greeting Moms group in the Austin area. Started with 8 of us, and today we are well over 100. And that shouldn't be. I love every single one of them, but I wish I had never met any of them. That would mean our loved ones were here. So how many of you knew that the leading cause of accidental deaths of Americans is fentanyl? At least from 18 to 45. A good portion of you do. This is not new news. When I first started doing this advocacy work, fentanyl was the 3rd leading cause of death, and that was behind DWI accidents and gun violence. And it has quickly shot up to the #1 killer. This should be advertised all the time. So what the heck is fentanyl? You guys may have heard of fentanyl in a pharmaceutical setting. It's a very powerful synthetic opioid, and it was created in the 60s for really, truly medicinal purposes, for pain management, anesthesia. It's 100 times more potent than morphine and 50 times more potent than heroin. We all know that heroin's bad, right? Don't do heroin. This is 50 times more potent than heroin. There's a very narrow therapeutic window, and still I'm talking about the pharmaceutical purposes here. When it's under a trained physician, when you're having surgery and they administer fentanyl, they're there the entire time because there is a fine line between life and death, and they know that, so they're monitoring you. It's highly regulated. It's made in labs. If you can see that, it's sterile labs that have clean lab uniforms. The floors are pristine, stainless steel tubs. They're mixing them in precise measurements. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about this kind of fentanyl, the illicit fentanyl. It's made in labs like this. And I don't know about you, but I don't think I'd want anything made in a lab looking like that. Plastic tubs, obviously in the middle of some forest somewhere. And you see the guys walking around fully suited up from head to toe, face covered, everything, because they know how dangerous what they're messing with is. Fentanyl is highly addictive, extremely addictive, and they know that, which is why they're using it or putting it into substances. There's an unlimited supply because it is synthetic. They can sit there and crank it out 365 days a year. So they can make an unlimited supply, and it's cheap, cheap, cheap to make. So they can produce it in mass quantities. It's added into multiple substances, and we're going to talk about that here in a little bit. And it creates repeat customers. If they don't die from what their dealer sold them, they're going to be looking for the high it gave them and go back to them and purchase more. But they're playing Russian roulette with their life. They know that their customers dying is simply a cost of doing business. Cameron's dealer knew he killed Cameron. He was at his funeral and posted, "R.I.P., we lost a good one." And the very next post was a handful of pills for sale. Tell me he cared about killing my kid. He cared about promoting his high-potent product. And sadly, those who are seeking fentanyl out or seeking a high out are looking for the stuff that's killing people because they know it's good stuff. They don't care that it's risking their lives. I'm happy to say he was just sentenced to 13 years in federal prison. So just a few grains of salt worth could be potentially lethal. A lot of factors involved in that lethality, but just know it's just a teeny tiny amount. And obviously, it's not regulated. There's no one sitting there doing precise measurements. They're just doing a little of this and a little of that, mixing it together and shipping it off. So here's a blown up example of a lethal dose of, potentially lethal dose of heroin and a potentially lethal dose of fentanyl. You can barely see the grains of sand in there. Here's another representation of a penny with a tiny amount of fentanyl to the side of it that's potentially lethal. Some of you may have seen pictures from DEA or something where they have a pencil. I think one of my flyers over here has the tip of a pencil has a teeny tiny amount on there, and that's a potentially lethal dose of fentanyl. I want to show you a quick demonstration. Sugar packet. If this sugar packet contained fentanyl, that right there is enough to kill 500 people. Exactly. It's staggering. Don't worry that you can't read this. I'm going to tell you what this represents. But basically, this is representative from 2014 drug-induced deaths. The bottom line represents ages from 15 on up to 75. And then the different substances in there, yellow represents the fentanyl deaths. And then there's methamphetamines, heroin, prescription, cocaine, benzos. But keep an eye on that yellow. Just 7 years later, in 2021, look at that jump. That's incredibly scary, and it continues to do nothing but go up. Interestingly enough, drug use among youth is actually down, but the deaths are up because of fentanyl. So where's fentanyl being found? If you can see these substances on here, everywhere, everything on here has been found to have fentanyl in it. And we're not talking prescriptions from a pharmacy here. We're talking, these guys are pressing pills to look exactly like legitimate prescription pills. They're shaping them, scoring them, imprinting them, and coloring them, just like a pill that you may have taken from a pharmacy before. But what happens is, it's an easy fix, right? Maybe kids have taken pain pills before for an injury or something. They know what it looks like. So they order a pill offline or get one from a friend and they go, okay, that's the real thing because I've taken that before. You can't do that. All law enforcement that I have been dealing with since the start of this, but since last August, they had never seen a substance that they have taken off the streets not contain fentanyl. Just assume anything that you're not getting from a regular source or regular legitimate source is fake and potentially fatal. But you see vape pens here, marijuana, heroin, Adderall. Adderall is actually what America is short of right now. So what do you think these guys that are making these pills are doing? Upping the supply of Adderall because they know it's going to be in demand. And that's a big one that we're hearing a lot of college students dying from because they're trying to study and focus, and they make stupid decisions like Cameron did. And a lot of times, the oxycodone you see in the blue is the main pill that's requested or ordered online. And if you've seen a lot of you, I'm sure, have seen the seizures online where they're in the news stories and everything. You see bags and bags and bags of blue pills. Well, those are usually oxycodones or oxycontins. M30s are also called, but because that's the most requested and in-demand pill. So dealers target teens through social media. I know this is kind of a busy slide, but I want to tell you, last known statistics, I don't have my phone up here, but everybody has a phone. Last known statistics were that there were over 90,000 drug dealers on social media. And I think that number is really low because it's hard to track. When somebody gets the heat put on them and thinks they're being tracked or found out, they're going to change their username and move on to something else, and someone else is going to come along. But this slide, they're carrying on conversations, mainly with kids. I keep saying kids, but adults are affected as well. They're carrying on conversations without even typing a word. They're using emojis. And this is a publication from DEA. It has common about drug emojis used, and potency that they have, what they have, where they're going to be, how much they have of it. And that changes as well. And I do have a publication over there that you can see those emojis. And also, the lower left-hand corner of this slide shows a menu, 2 different menus online of drugs. This is what pops up when kids are online, menus, and how much. So DEA, I work closely with DEA in a lot of situations, and they've done presentations with me, and so they're really good about statistics, but I want to make sure you guys know this is only DEA seizure statistics, no other law enforcement agency. So in 2023, DEA seized 75.6 million pills, actually more than that, but 75.6 million pills. Of those pills tested, 99% of them contained fentanyl. Of those 99%, which basically we could say 100, right? 70% of those contained a lethal dose of fentanyl. So I hate to get into math, but it's easy, I promise. If you have a pill, 10 pills in your hand, and there's a potential of 7 of those being lethal, do you want to take those chances? No. So what's an overdose look like? Here's a quick video. It's going to show you 3 symptoms and what to do, but the list is not exhaustive. I mean, you have some other things that could come into play if you see somebody going into that state, what to look for and all that, and we can talk about those maybe in a Q&A if you want to, but this is just a quick video.
Big 3 signs of an opioid overdose, such as one from fentanyl, are slow to no breathing, unconsciousness, and pinpoint pupils. How you can check for those 3? For slow to no breathing, you're going to place your hand on the person's chest to feel for the rise and fall of their breath. You can also place your hand under their nose or over their mouth and feel for their warm breath. To check for unconsciousness, you're going to start by shouting the person's name and asking if they can hear you. If they don't respond to you verbally engaging with them, you're going to cause some painful stimuli. To do that, you're going to give them what's called a trap pinch. You're going to pinch the corner between their neck and their shoulder as hard as you can. If you try that on yourself, it hurts. So if you do that to somebody who...
Oh, shoot. Just when we got the sound.
Who might be overdosing, they're not going to respond. The 3rd sign that you're going to check for, which is the telltale sign of an opioid overdose, is pinpoint pupils. So how you're going to check for that, you can use a flashlight like the one on your smartphone. The person's probably going to be unconscious, so you're going to lift their eyelid and shine the flashlight into their eye for 3 to 5 seconds. When you move the flashlight away, normally
Videos don't want to cooperate. We had it going.
What happened?
Exactly.
normal people, you will see their pupil get bigger when the light is no longer in their eye. Someone with a fentanyl
It's okay.
Okay.
We can do it. They can hear it now.
They just kicked me out again.
overdose, their pupil is going to remain pinpoint, very tiny in the middle of their eye.
It is absolutely critical that you call 911 when somebody is overdosed, because that makes sure that they get the medical attention they need, and that could very much save their life. Many states have what's called a Good Samaritan law, which protects people who call 911 when they're in the possession of drugs from being arrested for having those drugs in the moment, because these laws are meant to encourage people to do the right thing when someone's overdosing.
Again, sorry for the technical difficulties. Hopefully you got a little bit out of that, and it's a really, really good video, and I'm happy to share this presentation if everybody wants to send it out, however you want to do that. So let's see what you can get here. So let's talk a little bit about naloxone, or most of y'all have heard it called Narcan, and I'm going to talk about test strips as well. But first of all, how many of you guys know what Narcan is and what it does? Yay. When I first started doing this, nobody had heard of it. I mean, I say yay, that's really sad that you guys have to know what that is. I do have some over here that you guys are welcome to take it with you. And, but naloxone or Narcan, I call it Narcan for these purposes, is the antagonist to an opioid overdose. If someone is unresponsive due to an opioid overdose, it could potentially be life-saving. It comes in a box that looks just like this, and it has 2 doses in it that look just like this, which is kind of what you'd see like an Afrin, a nasal spray, those kind of things. But there's only 1 dose in each one of these. So if you come upon someone who's unresponsive, and this could be literally walking through the parking lot of Walmart, and you can find somebody unresponsive. You don't have to worry if what's going on with them, because if they're not overdosing due to opioids, this is like shooting saline in their nose. But what you do is you would obviously call 911 first, take it out of the box, insert it into one nostril, and then just press the plunger, and it should disperse some mist into their nose. And then if that doesn't revive them in a couple of minutes, use the other dose that's in your box, and hopefully by that time, EMS will be there and be able to take over at that point in time. So how that all works though in your brain is we all have opioid receptors in our brain. And when you're feeling pain, you feel it in those receptors, excuse me, and you take an opioid to help that pain. So the opioid is going to go into that pain receptor and start making you feel better. But if you take too much of it and go into that unresponsive state and are administered Narcan, then that Narcan can then sit on those receptors and not allow opioids to go in those receptors anymore. But what happens is opioids last longer than Narcan does. So that Narcan can then wear off, opioids start going back into your system, and you could go back into that unresponsive state. So it's not the end-all be-all, and in more cases than not, it takes more than what's in this box to revive someone. And it's never guaranteed to revive them at all. It's important also for those of you guys who have kids who might be worried that I can't call and get help because I'm going to get in trouble too. And I think you heard it in the video that the Good Samaritan law protects them from that. There are cases where kids are so afraid they take their unresponsive friend and put them on the porch of their home, and the kids are walking out and finding or the parents are walking out and finding their kids dead that next morning. Tragic when they could have gotten them help out of fear. So be sure that you pass that along. I'm going to touch a little bit on fentanyl test strips, as I know everyone has a different opinion. This is a disclaimer here, my personal opinion. I feel like fentanyl test strips give users a false sense of security. And why I say that is because fentanyl doesn't distribute evenly. It distributes in clumps. Think of when you're making chocolate chip cookies. And they come out and they're all beautiful, but they aren't all uniform, right? You might have one part of that cookie where it's nothing but dough, which is my favorite part because I'm not a huge chocolate fan. And then the other parts where there's lots of chocolate. So what's happening is these kids are breaking off a portion of a pill, and they may get that all dough part, and you have to liquefy it to test it, right? So you have to liquefy that pill. They're breaking off and liquefying it, sticking the test strip in there, and it comes back negative for fentanyl. They're thinking, oh great, this is a safe pill. They're taking that pill and dying because they only broke off that little portion and tested that little portion that just so happened to not contain any fentanyl in it. And I'm not just flapping my jaws up here. I know parents who have lost kids to that very fate. There are also kids who are experimenting for the first time, just out having fun, and someone offers them a pill and they take it and die. I know parents who have lost 2 sons. In one instance, they were at a graduation party experimenting for the first time ever, and they both died. And I want to say too, we're not talking, these are peers selling to peers. Cameron's dealer was 18 years old when he sold to him. He was in the area. It's not go to your bad part of town, look for someone on the street selling drugs. The common distribution of these drugs is through peer relationships. And a friend might hand you a pill and say, this made me feel awesome last night, or this calmed my fears, take one, they're awesome. And they hand them a pill and they die, but I guess the one that lived got that one of the three that might have been saved, right? That friend didn't mean any harm to the kid that died, but guess what? They're gonna get in trouble too. And I'm not telling you guys anything you don't know here, because I'm sure you have been exposed to that, but you cannot do either side of that, the selling or the ingesting. So, as I said in Cameron's case, the mental health piece of it, I think is extremely important to address. So we all know that life happens, and whether we're adults or children or whatever, we have stuff that happens, expectations, relationships, just keeping up with everybody or everything, school, overscheduling, fitting in, that's a big one. Kids hate to not feel like they fit in. There's heartbreak involved, and that could be obviously adults too. Social media is a big one. Everybody's posting that their life is perfect, right? So you must be the only one who has things happen to them not great. So it causes potential stress, anxiety, depression, all three at once, maybe one on one day, one on another. But the coping of those mental health issues is what's massively important. And in Cameron's case, he chose to go down that negative route. And mind you, before he turned 18, he was getting help. He was going to see a counselor and was feeling better. But when he turned 18, he thought he knew everything, thought he was invincible. So you feel stressed, you have choices or decisions to make, right? You go that healthy coping route or the negative one. If you go the negative route, a lot of those could be you're withdrawing from friends, you isolate yourself, you purchase illicit substances. You're looking for that easy fix, something that's going to make you that instantaneous I feel better, because I don't want to do the hard work to feel better. So what happens is that you might feel better for a short period of time, but you saw the statistics. If you go back coping with those negative coping skills, when you start feeling yucky again, that's where that potential of death comes into play. But if you go and take those choices and decisions and turn them into that positive coping route, could be something as simple as talking to a friend or a coworker, just a trusted person, parent, counselor, or it might mean getting a prescription, and that's okay too. But you're going to feel better for a long period of time. It's worth putting in the work. It's just society nowadays doesn't want to do that. They want to take the easy way out. So this is a video of Hayden, Cameron's older brother. He did for me, and it's mainly geared for when I do school presentations, but I think it's a good perspective for you guys to see just how it impacts not just parents. Obviously, siblings are affected as well.
Hey guys, my name's Hayden. I'm Cameron's older brother. Just kind of creating this video to share with you guys how Cameron's death has impacted me, and yeah, we'll jump right into it. I'll start by telling you guys the day that I found out. I woke up. It was a Saturday, and it was nice because it was the weekend from school. I'm sure you guys can all relate. Just nice time to go relax, not do homework, not study, anything like that. So I got up to go play basketball with some friends and hang out. And got back from playing basketball and I went to my bathroom, turned the shower on, and was about to hop in, and I heard the doorbell ring, and I had no idea who it was, and so I walked up to the door and opened it, and it was my family. It was my mom, my dad, and my mom's boyfriend and my dad's wife, and that's why it was weird, because, typically I don't see all of them together, and especially coming up to San Angelo out of nowhere. It was 3 hours away. I had no idea why they were there, and they told me that Cameron was gone, and I remember asking, like, what do you mean he ran away? Is that what you mean by gone? Because he had run away previously, and I was like, oh, well, he must have taken off again without telling me. And they said, no, he's gone. I don't know how to describe the emotions I was experiencing other than at that moment, it was probably the deepest, most intense kind of emotional pain that I think I've ever experienced. I know that's the worst I've ever experienced. Just super tight chest and like just this inability to comprehend the fact that my brother was no longer alive. And I remember the next 10 minutes just being super slow motion of me trying to process and comprehend like those words, he's gone. And anyways, past that, after that, it's just been a really long, tough road of still like an extended period of time where it still didn't seem real. You're in that denial phase of like it doesn't seem like it ever happened, but it did. And then you go through these emotions of like again re-experiencing honestly the same type of emotion I did the day I found out, of like just deep intense pain. And but it's also been good. Like it's also had its good times. I've been blessed with one, a family that loves me more than anything, cares for me very deeply, and two friends that do the exact same thing. They surrounded us. They loved on me. So I hadn't been just completely low the entire time. There's been highs too. But anyways, all this to say is that one pill truly can kill, and that was what it was for my brother. It was a muscle relaxant. It wasn't anything crazy, but it just happened to be laced with fentanyl, and it's a game. That's exactly what it is. It's just chance, essentially. You're gambling with your life if you're just taking a pill, and so that's what happened to Cameron. It's not worth it. I promise you, it is not worth it at all. And not only that, you have friends, you have family that love you very much and care for you, and would be absolutely devastated if you took a pill that ended up taking your life. So yeah, I think to sum it all up, don't take random pills. It's seriously not worth it. So thanks for letting me share, you guys. I hope that you get a lot out of this, and I hope that you pay attention because it's really important. It's a matter of life and death, and it's only becoming more and more prevalent for younger kids. So yeah, thank you guys.
That video was made a couple of years ago, almost a couple of years ago, and since that was made, Hayden got married in July of 22, and he is now expecting our first baby in September. And all that to say is, happy things and days still happen, but not without a huge hole in them. That day was an amazing, wonderful, beautiful day when they got married, but Cameron wasn't there to be his best man. Something they had always talked about. I got married last July to that amazing man sitting in the back of this room, and Cameron wasn't there to share in the joy of that day. It's sad to me that Hayden's child is only going to get to know her cool Uncle Cam through stories and pictures, and that shouldn't be the case. Your story and your kids' stories do not have to be Cameron's stories. You're here learning about fentanyl, and to continue learning about fentanyl is what you can do to ensure your story doesn't end up like Cameron's story. So what can y'all do? Can we give you guys, obviously it's not an end-all be-all. Some of it may seem like 101 stuff that you already know about, but just kind of get some things thinking about to doing. Obviously, start educate. My presentation isn't the end-all be-all. This drug landscape changes on a daily basis, So to keep up with what's going on out there is only gonna benefit you. Provide resources to those in need, and I know a lot of you here already do that. Sadly, I think resources for our youth are severely lacking in the state of Texas, and that's really, really difficult when you're faced with needing help for someone and not really knowing what to do. But there are resources out there, so reach out, but it could potentially save their life. Regular check-ins with those who might be struggling, be encouraging. Don't let them go through that alone. And if it just means you just check in with them and make them feel better about somebody cares, that could be all the difference it needs to make. Encourage healthy relationships, and that's in any setting. But it's super important to encourage healthy relationships with your kids. Listen to your gut. I don't know about you, but my gut is almost always spot on right. So if something's not right, you need to follow up with that. Engage in regular conversations. If you have kids at home or those that you know who might not be really able to have regular conversations with people, make it an everyday thing. Especially in your child-parent relationships, they need to know they can trust you and come to you with anything. But I know too that it's not always the easiest to talk to your parents about things. It's awkward, or maybe you're just embarrassed. So give your kids permission to talk to other friends' parents. Let them feel comfortable confiding in others. And specifically, parents, be in your kids' business. Know what they're doing online, know what they're doing on their cell phone, know the passwords to their computers and to their cell phones. You've got to know what they're doing. Unless they're paying for that phone, that's not their phone, right? So that goes without saying, monitor, be connected with your kids. That kind of goes with the regular conversations. Look for significant changes in behavior. If your child all of a sudden starts withdrawing or just seeming down, maybe the grades are kind of going down, check in with them. Normalize mental health issues and address them quickly. I can't stress this enough. Please relate to them a feeling you had growing up, or maybe that you're having right now, that you're going through. If they feel like you can relate and it's not something that's abnormal or embarrassing, kids just need to know that it's going to be okay and they're going to be okay. Let them know that. But also let them know it's not an easy path to get healthy if they get stuck in that mode for a long time, that it's going to take some work, but that you're going to be there with them. Talk about those healthy coping skills and, of course, discuss those situations. Allow breaks, encourage smart friend choices, and I've already said that one, give permission to talk to friends' parents. This one's important. Coordinate an escape plan with your kids for compromising situations. And at some point in time, your kids are going to be faced with a situation that they feel very uncomfortable being in. And they just don't know how to get out of it because they don't want to be made fun of. They don't want to look like, oh gosh, goody two-shoes, doesn't want to participate. Whatever that scenario looks like, potentially to you guys, act it out, talk about it, find an escape plan. Whether that's, hey Johnny, if you're in a situation, text me this and have a code word, and that means that alerts you to call them, and they have to answer the phone while they're at that party, while they're in that situation, and say, I gotta go, something bad happened at home, or whatever that case may be. Another thing that I thought was brilliant, I can't claim it because I didn't think of it, but a friend of mine told me that she told her kids she was going to randomly drug test them. Not because she's afraid they're going to be doing drugs, but so that gives them an out in a situation to say, no, my mom randomly drug tests me, I don't want to do that. And that's why you might think it was odd that there were drug tests on that table, but that's why I brought those for you guys. If you want to take them home and have that out, I hope you never have to open up that package, but at least your kids aren't lying. You have it there and you can say, here's what we're going to do, right? And Easy at Home, which is the company that makes those drug tests, has partnered with me to provide 15% off of orders. So if you wanted to do that, there's a flyer back there It shows, it explains the website and how it works, but we don't print the code on there because that could change, but right now it's a change for CAM in all caps, and you can get a discount on those. But feel free to take some today if you need them. And the big one, never say not my child. It can happen to anyone. I'm standing before you today because it happened to me, and never in a million years did I ever think I would be in this position. Fentanyl does not discriminate. It doesn't care what side of the tracks you live on. It doesn't care how you were raised. Cameron went to a private Christian school and went to church every Sunday, pretty much, from kindergarten through 11th grade, and then he went to public school his senior year. He knew the difference between right and wrong. He had a good home life. He just made an incredibly poor choice. When I was young and dumb and made mistakes, I was able to wake up that next morning and go, that was dumb, I'm never doing that again. Kids aren't able to do that these days. They're dying from their mistakes. And it's gotta stop. So I left this slide in here because I want you to see what I charge youth with, and I understand we may have some youth that are watching this as well, but youth, what can you do? It's kind of a lot the same that I've just charged you with, but obviously take care of your mental health, your stress, your anxiety, your depression, all of that is real. Don't let anybody slough that off. Don't be embarrassed by it. Don't be ashamed of it. The stigma attached with that is causing kids to go down these poor coping routes because they don't want anybody to know that that's what they're going through, so they look for that easy fix so they can start looking like they're feeling better. And again, educate yourself on today's drug landscape. Only take medication prescribed to you. Talk about the dangers of fentanyl with your family and friends. Again, it's a matter of spreading the word and educating. Be bold when offered an unknown substance. Don't be afraid to be that laughingstock. Don't be afraid to be the one that stands out and says no. Hayden made it through 4 years of college and never took a drop of alcohol or a substance in his system, and he had friends that admired him because of that. It is possible to be admired and for people to go, man, I wish I could do that. I think he held a lot of hair when people were throwing up from parties, but that even solidified more that he didn't want to go down that path. And again, have an out when in a compromised situation. Make wise friend choices. Look out for your friends. It could be a matter of nudging and saying, hey dude, what's up? Let's go talk. And then they feel better, and you've helped them do that. And obviously, don't experiment. It's not worth that risk. And lastly, I charge them with, don't be afraid to lose a friend. You could be saving their life. And what I mean by that is, if you have a friend who's struggling and they're going down a bad path, whether it's they're taking substances or they're selling or they're thinking about doing it, I get the normal human reaction is to protect that friendship because you don't want to lose them as a friend. I totally understand that. But let me ask you this. Would you rather risk losing that friendship and getting them help? Because eventually they're going to thank you for that. So would you rather risk that friendship and actually get them help? Or would you rather stay quiet and be attending their funeral? Because that's reality. Sad reality, but it's reality. Cameron's best friend Evan didn't expect to be standing up speaking at his funeral, telling about his best friend at the age of 19. Evan feels a lot of guilt for not saying more and not speaking up more, and it is nowhere near Evan's fault what happened to Cameron, but he's living in a personal hell because he lost his best friend and he feels like he could have done more. So in summary, just remember, it only takes one. And for Cameron, it was that one pill, but it could be that one line, that one toke, and certainly it could be just one time. And some of you already grabbed bracelets over there, but I do have these wristbands. They say, they have my website on it, and they say it only takes one. Feel free to take as many as you want if you have kids or somebody you want to give them to. It's just kind of a reminder to make wise choices and think, oh yeah, it could only take one. So hopefully it spurs on some thought in situations where they make wiser choices. I know somebody's going to come up and talk about questions, but thank you guys so much for having me here today, and hopefully you have some nuggets to take home with you.
Ms. White, thank you for coming and sharing Cam's story with us.
You're welcome.
You have given us a lot of powerful, useful information that we can share. Useful information such as how to spot an overdose, what is a lethal dose of fentanyl, and how fentanyl impacts and poisons not only those that it kills, but those who survive. At this time, Ms. White has been gracious enough to give us some time for questions and answers. If you have questions, please raise your hand and speak loud enough so that I can hear them and, if necessary, repeat them, and then we'll go from there. Also, that applies to those who are watching this via live stream.
Anybody have any questions? Yes.
Yes.
Well, I do. You asked a question earlier about, before this started, about do y'all have fentanyl or I'm sorry, do y'all have Narcan? Does everybody have Narcan? And that question surprised me because sometimes when people talk about setting up Narcan stations or whatnot, they act like it's a controlled substance and we've got to guard it. So can you talk about that a little bit?
Sure. Number one, I can relate that to school situations where kids cannot carry Narcan with them because they do treat it like a controlled substance, and they feel like if they administer it and something goes wrong, they could get sued as a school. So any medication that a child brings into a school, they have to check it in with the nurse. Well, that doesn't do any good if their friends passed out in the bathroom. They have to run 10 minutes across campus to the nurse's station to get the Narcan and bring it back and hopefully save their life, but it takes minutes for someone to die from it because opioids are a respiratory suppressant, so it just slows the breathing down to where they stop breathing. And obviously we all know if you're not breathing for an extended period of time, you're going to die. And it varies from person to person on how quickly that could happen. There are experts in here that can probably answer that better than I can, but if there's anything you can push is maybe for those kind of situations to change. It's not a controlled substance. Like I said, if you administer it to someone and it's not an opioid overdose, it's like shooting saline in their nose. So, but everyone should carry Narcan because literally my stepson worked at Walgreens and they found someone unresponsive in the restroom, administered Narcan and saved their life. Anybody can come across someone. I mean, you could have been a customer going to the bathroom and running across. I travel with it because you never know. Somebody could pass out on a plane, right? DEA agents, even truly a situation that was told to me personally, they went out on a drug seizure, fully suited up and protected, and they were that afternoon back from all of that. And one of the agents that was on the call stood up and they heard her say Narcan as she fell to the floor, and they administered Narcan and saved her. So even professionals who are taking every precaution in the world, there was some way that was still lingering around, whether she took off her suit and touched something and then, it's not just sinking into your skin, but you touch your eye or you whatever, and it can get into your system. So everybody should carry Narcan.
Yeah, I see your hand, Becky White.
Yes, you had indicated you were part of a support group. Is that support group just local, or do they have multiple chapters?
Yeah, so we aren't an official chapter. It's just moms who loved each other and wanted to keep that camaraderie going because as a grieving parent, there's nothing more comforting in a moment than when you could just be sitting there in silence and not have to say a word and know that everybody knows how you're feeling. So it's not really a chapter, but there is an organization that was started by a really good friend of mine who lost her son Tucker called Texas Against Fentanyl, and they have chapters I think they even have one in the Dallas area. I'm not sure which county it is, but they're starting to have chapters elsewhere and connecting grieving families that way. Mm-hmm. Yes.
Ms. Richardson?
Becky, I know that you've had the opportunity to go to a lot of schools in the state of Texas. Do you think schools are doing enough to educate parents and the children about the dangers of fentanyl?
Do I think schools are doing enough to educate? You hear the laughter. No. Quite honestly, no. That same organization, Texas Against Fentanyl, that Stephanie founded, they were very, very active in this last legislative session and actually got a bill passed called Tucker's Law, where the state of Texas does have to provide fentanyl awareness training or education in their schools, the 6th grade on up, I believe. I think personally it needs to be in elementary school, age appropriate. Of course, you're not going to teach them a lot of things that are hard for them to hear, but we need to get these kids before they have exposure or access to any of these kinds of substances, because once they've experienced it, it's really hard to get them back on track. So I would actually try to advocate for your schools to look out and administer that education, whether it's Tucker Project or whatever that looks like, and bringing assemblies in. It's sad that the grieving parents have to tell the story, but I think it's super impactful when we do, because anybody can learn about fentanyl and talk about fentanyl, but it just has a different meaning when a parent is telling that story in desperation. And right now, honestly, grieving parents are the ones leading the charge, and that shouldn't be the case. Sorry, that was a long answer to your question.
Are there any more questions?
Yes.
From your perspective, if you don't use fentanyl test strips, is there something else that kids can use in order to help them? Because they're going to experiment. That's something we all know. And unfortunately, more and more kids are dying because of this epidemic. So do you have any, again, suggestions on what they could use in order to test their drugs? I know that's a touchy subject.
Yeah, so if you didn't hear that, he said in opposition of using test strips, is there something that kids could do to test what they're wanting to take, because experimenting is going to happen. It is going to happen. We understand that, and honestly, I don't know of any alternative. You may have experienced some things out there in your field, what you do, but I don't know of anything other than pure abstinence from these substances. Which is not going to happen. We're going to continue to have the death. And another thing we need to do is, it's a supply and demand issue. If you don't work on both of those issues, it's never going to end.
Well, they're currently not legal in the state of Texas.
Right, they aren't legal.
Ahead, because if you have nothing, something's better than nothing.
I agree, but they could be testing that part of the pill that doesn't have fentanyl in it, right? And giving them that, oh good, my pill's safe, and then they die. Well, what good was testing it?
And my thought, if you can come up with a vaccine for COVID-19, you can come up with a way to test it.
100%. And if you can blast out deaths due to COVID and COVID in your area by zip code and recoveries in your area by zip code, why are you not blasting this out? And honestly, the numbers of deaths are probably severely underrated because the tracking of it, and you probably know this, the tracking of it is absolutely horrific. A lot of them, they're just, they overdosed, or they don't test for fentanyl when it is that situation. So I'm telling you, it's way worse than what the numbers are reporting.
If I could say, they're equated to University of Texas football stadium, 100,000 people in that stadium. You could feel it from last year's deaths from COVID.
Yep.
Excuse me, from fentanyl.
Fentanyl, absolutely. It's going to be worse this year.
Yes, it is.
Already is. It's bad. Yes.
What's the youngest age that you've heard of that driving an overdose?
The youngest age that I've heard dying from fentanyl. So there have been infants die from fentanyl, but obviously they didn't make that choice to take it. It's whether they were around somebody that had it and they probably crawled around in it or something, or there are instances where sadly caretakers, whether it's their family members or what, feed them to calm them down, feed it in their bottle. But I have heard, yes, sadly. I know, it's hard to digest all the information for sure and to comprehend how someone could be so cruel. But the youngest age I've heard of dying is 10 years old when they ingested something because somebody gave them something and they were experimenting.
Ms. Reeves, you had a question?
I don't know if I can ask this question, I don't know. There's a lot of emotions I'm feeling right now, but, how many of the individuals that have been lost that you were aware of were struggling with mental health and didn't know that's what the real struggle was?
Right, so how many of the families that I know who've lost their loved ones were struggling with mental health and didn't know?
Yeah, because the clients that I see a lot of times with the fentanyl are individuals that are struggling with their mental health but don't really know how to respond to it.
Right.
So how many of the children that you've heard about were in that position?
Well, I will tell you a good majority. I don't know numbers, but I don't remember hearing someone not struggling with mental health issues. And it's whether they knew it or not, I don't know the answer to that. I think in some way, shape, or form, you know you're struggling, and that's why you're reaching out for that substance, but you maybe can't pinpoint it to a diagnosis, or because you haven't been diagnosed before, you think, oh, I'm just struggling right now, I'll be fine if I take this, right? And we all know that's not normally 100% the case, so. Anybody else? Yes?
If someone wants to reach out to you and ask you questions or ask you for some advice on where to go if they are dealing with this issue or they want to help with this, how do they get in contact?
Yes, you can, there's a contact form on my website. You can go there at changeforcam.org, or you're welcome to email me at changeforcam@gmail.com, and I'm happy to answer questions or point you in the right direction. And again, we have connections all over the United States, so surely if it's even somebody in Pennsylvania, we have a network there that we know of through Facebook groups and that we can connect with. So there's always someone out there that can help. Don't be afraid to reach out.
And you can also follow them on Facebook and Snapchat.
Yes.
Or is that
No, Facebook, Instagram, yes. And my organization is just me, myself, and I, and my wonderful husband who helps me set up and take down and advises on slides. But I'm a party of one, and I'm not a tech guru, so social media updates, I'm not real great about it. However, the last 2 days I've posted 2 things, and I'll share this with you guys. This doesn't have anything to do with questions, but yesterday was the 3-year anniversary of Cameron's death, and sorry, I'm probably gonna get emotional here. That last text exchange that we had about what we were gonna do and go downtown and walk his dog and hit up food trucks. My husband and I took his dog down to Town Lake yesterday. 3 years when we should have been going down there, 3 years after. And my organization also has put up billboards in the Austin area, and one was literally steps away from where we were walking downtown, and it has a huge picture of Cam on it. He was there with us, but you know, it really stinks to see your kid on a billboard in that way. I mean, I could see him on a billboard when he was younger, but not that way. Yes?
I have to ask you another Narcan question.
No worries.
Sometimes when we go to events and they're talking about free Narcan, you know, they're giving it out one at a time. What's a good source for Narcan?
Yeah, so you can request it from morenarcanplease.com. The problem with that is if you don't have an organization that you can put it under, you can only order one box at a time, but hey, 1 box of free Narcan and they ship it to you for free. But I do get it through my organization and can order it in larger quantities. So please, y'all, feel free to take it. And we do have some other boxes in the car. We just couldn't carry them all in today, so feel free to take them with you.
And Ms. White, would you repeat the source for Narcan one more time?
Yes, it's morenarcanplease.com. And they have you fill out a form and just say what you're using it for, and it's pretty simple.
Yes, Lieutenant.
Yes, I'd like to actually just bring an update on that. I told you, remember, I was at the Texas Substance Use Symposium in
Yes.
Austin. They've changed that. That's gone over to Be Well Texas, which is a state health organization that helps with mental health. But the new address for that is called naloxonetexas.com. I'll have it pulled up here.
naloxonetexas.com.
naloxonetexas.com.
Correct, and it goes there, it says get naloxone, get training, either one, and you hit that button, she's right. If you're small, you're a single person, they're gonna give you one, your organization, and we'll give you more. And so that's probably what you want to look.
And they also have it in kind of an EpiPen form now as well, where it's an injectable and it's quicker response. But individuals can't get that, organizations can. But I actually just ordered from more Narcan Place, so that's probably phasing out and just going straight to the new website. I wasn't aware of that, so thank you.
I see a hand in the back, Ms. Exum, and then Mr. Scott. And then we'll probably have to wrap this up.
Answer who might know. Do our bailiffs have Narcan?
The question is, do our bailiffs here or with the Sheriff's Department have Narcan? Becky?
So, all departments are currently part of an action group. There are safety coordinators assigned to each and every floor. And as part of the action group that's currently going on right now, that discussion is being had to ensure that every Dallas County employee is trained to administer Narcan and that there are particular Narcan stations on each floor. If you were to ask someone that was in the probation department, they have an individual who has Narcan. If you were to ask someone in the public defender's office, they have individuals who have Narcan, DA's office and on. But we realize that we're operating in silos, and much as Ms. Becky has indicated, if something's gonna happen, it may happen out in the hallway. It may happen in the bathroom. So there are plans to make sure that there are Narcan stations available and every employee is trained and know where those stations are. But the plans are in development.
Yeah, and you said something really important, to know where those stations are. It's one thing to have Narcan, and it's another thing to know where it is. Kind of like AED machines, right? Where you should know where those are in your organizations. You're probably going to have more of an opportunity to use Narcan than you ever would an AED machine. So know where it is if your organization does have it.
Mr. Scott?
You said your son bought his fentanyl off of social media. Is there a particular social media site that is more prone to selling drugs than others?
All of them, honestly, because they post on all lines of social media. And his was from Snapchat, but there are so many other avenues out there that they can post these menus on or reach out to. And innocently, they can message kids through gaming systems and just start up conversations and then get them to hop somewhere else. And not knowing, you know, that's why it's important. You got to be in your kid's business and know what they're doing and teach them how to respond when someone comes up that they don't know. Or it's all education. You can't just put your kid in front of the computer and say, here, play this game. You can't. It's not safe these days at all.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, go ahead.
As she asked if Narcan expires, yes, they do have an expiration date, but experts say that expiration date is just a date, that it goes on well beyond that expiration date. And honestly, I wouldn't toss it if that expired, because if you ever do need it, it's best to have it and use it and, you know, potentially save a life. Anybody else? Yes.
Ms. Metzger.
Did take me some pushing to get it, because there's a lot of ignorance out there, like the thing about you can't overdose. We want liability, blah, blah, blah. I finally just kind of stuck some in the usher's closet. But, decided I'd have to do this later. But, when I mentioned it to the security guard, he got tears in his eyes and said, "You have anything, I've got to get it." So I'm just telling you,
Yeah, you're exactly right. It's not just educators and mental experts and those that are going to be using Narcan. And like she said, she got some from her ushers at church. I mean, honestly, somebody could have had a really bad night and decided they're going to get right with God that next morning and go to church, but they pop that pill before they walk in and they go, I mean, It's not out of the realm of possibility. I know that sounds crazy, but it's not out of the realm of possibility. Sadly.
Are there any other
I
questions?
just have one question.
Yes, ma'am.
I just wanted to know, what kind of control does the government have towards the media that is out there? Is there any control to where they can stop all these, people that advertise all this thing on?
They try, but just when she asked what kind of control is out there to stop these online dealers, is that what you're talking about, or how they're getting out there on social media? They try, and when they know that they're either being targeted or the feds are on them or whatever, they change their username and they just start doing it under another name. Cam's user knew they were on it. He posted boldly, "Feds are on my ass, but I'm still making bank." Really? They don't care. But those that do care, they just start selling in a different platform or under another user. It's out of control. And I'm not sure how they can, without wiping out the entire World Wide Web, I'm not sure how we can do that. Anybody else? Well, thank you for hanging in there through our technical difficulties. I promise we tested everything ahead of time, but, stuff happens. So thank you guys so much.
And before we go, I want to give a special shout out to Maricela Canava, who introduced us to Cam's story. Also want to thank Miss Alexis McGowan, who had a part in this setup, and a special thanks to Mr. Aaron White, who made the live stream happen and came up and helped us with our technical difficulties. Thank you all very, very much, and thank you all for coming.
You're welcome. Thank you for being here. You're welcome. You're welcome.
Saved my niece's life.
What?